But Anders, I had to ask, is it right that Anders died twice? And Anders lived on Greenwich Road, where he grew up, and he walked also to Elk each day. My name is Lauke and I'm a woodworker. I'm also the brother of Astrid, who's one of the people behind this game called Welcome to Elk. And that's also why this whole thing started, kind of because in my youth I was traveling a lot and living different places and working there. And through these travels, I had my own experience of these places, and also I was told a lot of local tales, and therefore, in between the travels, I was like telling friends and family about what I've experienced. So that's how Astrid, she basically came up with this idea. Welcome to Elk is loosely based on some of the local tales I was told when I was in California, and also on other stories from other travels that I've been on. And I guess a lot of other people have shared their stories, and they're part of the game as well. And it's a bit fun to see and recognize the stories when you play the game, and to see how they're changed in certain directions, and what is left and what is, One of the stories that I brought home with me from California was about the character Beth, who was one of the local drunks in a town called and she was one of the everyday customers on this bar, where she used to show up with her brother, sitting there all day drinking. And at some point, as I guess you also experienced in the game, her brother, he passed away a couple of times at least, and Beth, she after a while decides to go to another bar. She actually moved a town over, and due to she not showing up in this bar, make a local journalist for the local newspaper think that she must have been passed away. First her brother, and now she's gone as well. So she actually write a small article about it in the newspaper, which Beth, of course, out drinking, her phone calls, and it's her old neighbor from the old town who is, "Oh, I'm just checking in on you because I read in the paper today that you were dead. No, you're pulling my leg," or something like that. And you get hold of the newspaper from the other town, and yeah, that's true. There's a small article of loving memory and all that about her being dead. Her later to find out that it was just because she wasn't showing up in a local drunk. So I ended up in California because before that I was in Greenland, which is really cold, and I thought that now I needed to go someplace warmer. So I looked up a lot of English-speaking warm places I could go, so that I could communicate while working there. And I figured out to call a certain time of the day in Denmark where they will have evening in the Caribbean, and also morning time or early day in Hawaii. And so I just basically started calling east to west. And I got a hold of a lot of people on the phone, but when I got to California, this lady picked up, and she immediately recognized my Danish accent and thought I was a family member of her husband, who actually was the guy I was trying to reach, because he was, and I didn't know, but he was actually from Denmark. I didn't know because his last name was West, which is not a common Danish name. So we started talking in Danish over the phone, and we agreed to that I could come work for him the next fall. And so I did, and I was there for some time. Green card guys. Before I went to California, I was, as I just told you, I was in Greenland, and I don't know why I ended up there particularly. I was trying to get to Canada actually at the moment, I somehow got hold of this guy who had a carpenter firm in Greenland. And also my parents, they met in Greenland and they've been living there and working for several years. So I actually grew up with a lot of stories from up there. And also in my teens I was there for a couple of weeks, and I think it needed more exploring, but I didn't have a certain plan with it, and it just sort of happened. Traveling around both just as a backpacker, but also working and living where you are, you meet a lot of different people. But I experienced that when you work there and live there for a longer period, you meet people in another way. You get to know them more deeply, and also you meet some of the people that you might not have noticed if you were just passing through in a couple of weeks, a couple of days. Of course, when you get to a place, the first people you meet is the most outspoken and the most colorful people often. But when you are there for a while, you get to know actually who you like and also who you dislike, and also all these crazy side characters with their quirky qualities and differences, and yeah, and also you get the whole way of being at that place. You get the whole, like, the rhythm. For example, in Greenland, you don't have time in the same way you do in Denmark. If you say you meet at 7 in Denmark, or if you say, can you come over for lunch, you will say at what time. You will get a time and you will be there 5 minutes ahead of time. But both in Greenland, extremely, it's just like, come over for dinner, and when, yeah, I don't know, we will start cooking when you're there, so you just come by. And also kind of in California, they can have this certain laid-back rhythm to, yeah, the whole lifestyle. I only tried elk briefly on a few occasions. I must admit it's actually been a while, but I remember it as quite fun to see how these stories have been changed, but still are the same. To see them some of these stories are so crazy, and to see such a crazy story being processed through other people's minds, and to re-experience them or being them retold is yeah, that's funky. Right before I went to California, me and my girlfriend, we bought this boat actually that we are on right now, and we did that due to low living costs, so that we could travel a lot. But also we started up a small woodwork shop who has grown since, and yeah, except for like a weekend in Berlin or something, we've basically just been grounded working on the firm, and yeah, making it grow. So yeah, that's what most of the time goes with today. That's getting, yeah, work done. But also we have a small sailing boat separated from this that we use in the summertime, and I have a couple of motorcycles and some mopeds that I like to try to get running, keep running. Yeah. Well, let me tell you how I was told about George and how he died. Georgie was a wheat farmer up in Green Lane Road. And one day, he was caught by the police. And then he was sent to jail, where he had to do a couple of years. And to get by, he had to trade in some favors with some bikers to be safe in prison. And he did what he had to do, and after some years, he was free and he went home on Greenland Road to see his family. And some more years went by. Until one day, when the bikers, they came to him for unsettled debt. The neighbors could hear the motorcycle engines roaring, driving up on Green Lane Road, and stopping at George's house. And there the bikers went in, dragged out George, his wife and his daughter, and tied them up to some poles in the driveway. And while Annie and Mia, the daughter, the wife and daughter, they watched, put a shotgun to George's head, and they pulled the trigger and blew off his face. George just hanging there, me and Annie unable to help, just watching. The bikers took off. And of course George, he was dead. Years later I went there on Green Lane Road. And at the bar I met Annie and Mia. Been told the story about George's death. I had to ask them, was this true? Was it how it happened? And if so, how did they get by afterwards? So I asked them that. And then she simply asked, and I answered, well, we had to eat a lot of squirrels afterwards. With George gone, bringing home no money. Pretty shocked by this answer. I looked at Mia, the daughter. She was just staring into the air, all empty. And then finally she said, the day that he died, I'm never gonna forget.
Hello, hi to everyone watching from LudoNarraCon. I'm one of the developers on Welcome to Elk. My name is Murray Summerwolf. I am the art director and co-writer on the game. For a short synopsis to anyone who doesn't know what Welcome to Elk is, it is a narrative game based on real stories. What does that mean? It means that our other co-writer and also game director and CEO of Triple Topping, Astrid Restrup, her brother Lauga went traveling to rural America and also Greenland, and he met a whole host of amazing and articulate people who told him these stories which, were just too good to be true. And when Largo then told them back to Astrid, she knew that she had to make a game out of these. So that's what Welcome to Elk is. Welcome to Elk is the game based on these stories. And what I'd like to do with this stream is I would like to discuss a little bit about the art direction and world building of the game. Like, how did we take this concept of the idea of the stories and create it into the setting in the world that we inhabit in the game that you see today. So what I'd first like to show you is these are the original illustrations and drawings from Astrid's first incarnation of Elk, which was based on her BA project that she did. And for me, when I came onto the title, these were the first things I was shown, because there was original first attempt of what the game was now. And then when I came onto the team, the idea was, okay, let's evolve this. Let's turn it into like a fully fledged game. So for me, I really loved the pencil drawings and the kind of monochrome. It gave like some kind of weight to the idea that the stories were real, even though it had this cartoony style. It had something in it which had a little bit of grit, and I really liked that. So the first thing we did when I was working on the title was we made this initial prototype. And the prototype, I leaned into, I mean, we didn't have a lot of time, but I really leaned into like a kind of cartoony, illustrative type, this black and white feelings, like, this scene here, for instance, something which felt like it could be kind of dark at the same time. It was fun and allowed this flavor of like humor. And the kind of idea of the setting was that it would be like a kind of an Americana, kind of a small American rural town, maybe a little bit similar to the likes of Trailer Park Boys and a little bit of Twin Peaks, that kind of like, diner, small, like American hub. And for the initial prototype, we were happy with these kind of results. But when we started probing it and thinking about it more, we were like, the kind of the essence of what the game was about kind of got lost. And we went back to the drawing board and started to think, well, could we relocate this to somewhere a bit more culturally relevant to, as people might not know, the studio is based in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and we wanted to find a way of crossing over different cultures and taking a little bit more of the America out of it. So what we did was, when thinking about it, we tried out different locations, and this is a sketch of an island that I created, and with little flourishes of story with the abandoned brewery and this unfinished railway bridge, things which made it kind of iconic. And we were really attached to that. We liked the idea. An island became what seemed like the perfect hub for a place to put stories, where you could have people from all different walks of life end up on this island, and where these stories could really like feel like they could exist. And one of the ideas was that this would be somewhere kind of maybe in like the Atlantic Ocean, which could help give it a place. So with that in mind, with the art style, I started to push it and explore the original idea with the monochrome, not losing that, the thread line from the initial from that initial game, but instead trying to evolve it and develop it into something which was a bit more rich. So playing with the idea of more like with shadow and with space, some physicality, and also with the idea of very muted small colors just helping to break through and make the scenes come to life. And when I talk about the physicality, that became really important to us. And I actually made a library of these hand-drawn textures that you can see now, and playing around with the art in this particular kind of way and finding ways to create something which made a contrast between something which could be like seen as illustrative but also feel real, that became really important with us and started to build up to an art style which I think we all start to feel was what the game was about. And in that case, we started to build more of a picture of like the kind of houses and how color could be used in the characters. And progress was going pretty well. The only thing was we were starting to feel that like there was a little bit of naivety going on. Like, although we were exploring this in a fun way, there was something that felt like it was missing. So what we did was we did like a world building workshop where we sat down and we came up with all the strict rules of this island elk. Like, what kind of climate is it? Where exactly is it? Like, it's somewhere just off Greenland in the Atlantic Ocean. It's what would the wildlife be like? What kind of structure, economy? Like, how does it work? What does it mean to live on elk? What would you see? And doing this and finding the references and kind of compiling this kind of real life picture of it really started to help with the art style. We started to have a direction for how things would be, like buildings, how they would be wooden and like, have these supports as they like, built into the rocky and harsh like landscape. How if they had more modern homes, they might just look like trailer parks. And when we started making that decision, it really helped to flesh out all of the details. You could start to like compile these lists of like nature and objects, and even then with the color, it kind of helped for us to design this idea that, as you can see on the left, these are things which are not interactable, while on the right, these are things which are interactable. So the color became purposeful and designed. And when you start to put all that together, you start to finally get a sense that the style was working. It was something which had a harmony. everything could have worked together. Like characters would like pop through these scenes. You'd see in the background things which felt like, you know, that were telling a story about this environment. What kind of like island and place is this? You have there on a beer machine on the left how like color could like help, in the one hand, aesthetically help break up the monochrome, which could be maybe a little bit oppressive, but at the same time it also worked as a design choice, because then we're telling the players very explicitly this is something you can interact with. And yeah, when all these elements start to come together, we've ended up with this something which is illustrative, but also it has a feeling of weight, which is what I really liked from those initial drawings that I saw from Astrid's first game, where it was something which felt like it could be fun and accessible, but it was also something which felt like it could also allow sadness, and it could also allow some moments of brevity and meaning. In the same way, I guess one of our biggest inspirations is BoJack Horseman. I think that's a fantastic show for how you can use an accessible art style to lure an audience into dealing with like hard themes. And of course, once you have like an island worked out in the place, it means you can start to put characters in. Here's a little roster call of all the characters that live in Elk. But I think we found that once we found this location where it felt real, it made it so much easier to start putting characters into there and making them like, of course, like this is their home, and that was really fun. That was a really fun thing to do. And I guess when we had the art style worked out, what was really cool was that it meant we had opportunities to start doing exploration by pushing on the boundaries of what the art style could do, because we have all these mini games. And this is a mini game taken from our demo, which is at the beginning of the game, where it's a kind of like Simon Says kind of dance off. But then later in the game, we have these other moments of other mini games, you know, like pouring beer, making a face for our character Anis, who's lost his parents. And what the fun thing is that with such a solid foundation of the art style and of the world that they live in, through the mini games and through the other elements, we can start to explore more of the art style and push them more to different extremes. So then you have moments of this, which is one of the more harder hitting moments in our game. You can really, you can really punctuate the emotion. You can really set the scene. You can really bring the players in and use the art style to its maximum efficiency in that way. And for me, as an art director, that's really fun. That's really exciting. And I think that's been one of the real joys of Welcome to Elk, is that by playing around with the idea of real stories and also the idea of fiction and tall tales through the art, we've managed to create something which allows both the ability to have fun and be playful at the same time, never going too far as of not to take away the right attention when the story needs it. If a story is heartbreaking, the story should remain heartbreaking, and the art style should do everything it can to make the player feel that and experience it in the same way that we were told those stories. So yeah, I think that's it's brief, but I think like that's a little fun journey for everyone to know about the game. If you'd like to know more and you would like to see more of the art and more of the story and everything about it, I would absolutely ask you to wishlist us on Steam. If you'd like to hear more before the game comes out and hear more about development, please hit us up at Triple Topping on Twitter and on Discord. We have a Discord where we're now sharing information on a regular basis. But otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in and listening. Please get in touch if you have any questions, but otherwise I hope everyone stays safe and enjoys the rest of the festival. Thanks a lot.
Hello, and welcome to this video behind the scenes on the game design of the mini games of Welcome to Elk. I am Simon Stonehanske, and I am the programmer and game designer of Welcome to Elk, and also co-founder of our studio. And Welcome to Elk, in short, is a narrative game based on true story, and it's sprinkled with these mini games, just a ton of them all throughout the game. And what I want to do today is just show you, go into depth on one of the mini games and show what our kind of design process is when working with these mini games. So before I show you anything, I just want to discuss what our game design goals are. So we have 4 design pillars for our mini games. The first one is playfulness. So we want our games to be playful. We want to give creative freedom to the player when they play it, so they can't. There isn't just one right way to approach a mini game, but you can kind of do it in your own way. Then we want no failures. So we, in general, in Welcome to Elk, there are no fail states. You're never told to redo something. You don't die and have to restart. So we want the same to be true for the mini games. Then we want only one button. So as much as possible, we try to use just one button for the mini games, in addition to movement with an analog stick or WSD. And then the last and probably the most important design pillar is that the minigame ties into the narrative somehow. And we're going to see that with the minigame we have here. So first I want to show an old prototype, so a video of an old prototype we made, and then afterwards show the new version, so how that kind of ended up looking inside the game. So first I'm just going to run the video for this old prototype. And let's see. So for this old prototype, we had the idea that it would be fun, because we wanted the games to tie into the narrative. It would be fun that there's some kind of permanence from what you do in the minigame. So we had the idea that you draw something. Like, we like the creative games, again, with the playfulness, so we wanted the player to like draw something, and then that thing that they drew would appear inside the game. Again, like tying into the playfulness aspect, it would be fun if it was kind of a surprise, so they didn't know exactly how these things would tie in. So we made a minigame where instead of us drawing the facial expressions for the main character, we think, hey, wouldn't it be fun if the player draws the facial expressions for the main character? So that's what we're showing in this prototype. Here you can see how, with the controller and just the A button, the player here is drawing like a surprise face for a character. And then what happens, so they draw a surprise face, then I'm just going to skip ahead in the video here. They draw a happy face, they draw a, let's see, what else they draw? A sad face, and then in the end, to test this prototype, we set up a scene where, like, a really simple thing. So what we do with our prototypes is we try to keep it as simple as possible. We just keep it to the core concept. So here you see the scene that plays out. And you can see over on the left side that the main character already has the happy face on. And this other character says, fuck. What? And they put on the surprise face. Oh, nothing. You scared the shit out of me. And this is the angry face. You were scared? I thought we were out of beer. A lot of our stories involve beer, so yeah. Already, but we just started our trip, and this is the surprise face again. Woof! And here we take the happy face from the character and also put it on the dog, because we thought, hey, it's fun if we can like surprise the players, and use the things that they create in a playful way and put them into some different aspect of the game where they wouldn't expect to see it. So that's what we did here. Okay, but a couple of things about this prototype weren't quite what we wanted. Like, it's a problem if the player like draws the actual face of the main character. Like, we can't. It would just become a really silly game if the player drew something really silly at the beginning of the game. And at the same time, like, drawing with a controller is actually not that fun. and like this is the main input for the game. So we or keyboard, and like with both of those options, it's not really that fun to actually draw a face. So we went a bit of a different direction. So I'm just gonna fire up one of the mini games here from the game. It's called, well, we call it the Faces game, and you can see it's kind of the same concept. So we are creating faces in this game, but it's not now it's not the face of a main character. It's the face of Anas down here in the left corner. His parents are dead, and he wants Frigg to help him find them. So Frigg has to help him recreate these faces. So again, it's the same kind of movement as in the other game. I move around with the left stick, and I can now instead of drawing, I'm picking up these what's it called? These photographs, like these cutouts from newspapers, and I can place them on the balloon. So this was actually Murray, the co-writer and art director on the game. His idea to do it this way, and this is a really clever way to also make faces, because you have a lot of creative freedom to make whatever face you want, even though it seems very limited compared to drawing. You actually can do a bunch of different stuff. Like just making a face is actually fun. See, even with, so now I've put on 4 different, I put on 2 eyes and a nose, but imagine as a player you're like, no, I don't want to use eye, actually let's use a mouth. And now this one is like winking, I guess. Okay, so when we're done, we can boop the seal of approval, and we keep going. And this is another thing we do to ensure that we only use one button, like just using the space of the game. So instead of having a button that's like, oh, click this button when you're done, you just actually move the hand down to the seal and use the context of the hand being above the seal to know, okay, we're done making this balloon, and the game continues. So as much as possible, we're trying to not use more than that one button. And the thing about fail states, again, like with the drawing game, we don't want you to be able to reset. It would be fun. So if you wanted to, if you need to reset in the drawing game, you'd have to like have an eraser and you pick that up and you'd erase stuff. But here, actually, if you do something and you regret doing that thing, so let's say I want mouths for eyes, and I want also a mouth as mouth, and this nose, and I regret that, I'm like, okay, I don't actually want this nose, then I just plop it off, put on a different nose. So that's also something that's really important to us, that you don't end up in a state that you can't get back from, basically. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this face, and click the seal. And one of the things we did keep from the original prototype is this idea of permanence. Like, one of the 4 design pillars is we want the games to tie into the narrative. And of course this ties into the narrative because Anas lost his parents, and we're trying to find them, so we're getting more engaged into that story. But here we also see how Anas, he actually takes these balloons that we design and put them up in his cave. So now when we later come back to the cave, we can look at them and be like, oh yeah, those were the balloons that we made earlier in the game, and now I can actually go up and look at them again and be like, oh yeah, that was so fun when we made the balloons. So I can go up and I can be like, oh yeah, I made that thing and that thing. So that the game kind of feels like it ties everything together in the game, basically. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to show you today. as part of LudoNarraCon, we have a demo up on Steam that you can download and play the game for yourself. So I highly recommend that you go try it out. But yeah, that's everything. Thanks for watching.